Okay, so let's summarize a little bit what we learned so far. We started off, Tanya started off with what it says in the Talmud, that before a person is born, immediately before the person is born, Hashem has the neshama take an oath. And that oath has 3 parts to it. Okay? The first part is to be a tzaddik, to strive to be righteous, which seems to be a very positive thing. We should have big goals. We should have have great estimations of the heights that we could reach. And then the second part of the oath is don't be a rasha. So when you hear, and that doesn't make so much sense because it seems that it's repetitive. Be a tzaddik, be righteous, and don't be a rasha, don't be wicked. It's repetitive. So that we need to clarify. And we need to clarify what is righteous, what do we mean by righteous, what do we mean by wicked. And then the last part is that even if everyone tells you that you're righteous, you should always consider yourself wicked. So, first of all, it doesn't make sense. First of all, if everyone tells you that you're righteous, it means that you look righteous. That means that in your behavior, you're righteous. You're really very committed. You're fulfilling all the mitzvot, all the commandments, and that's why people are thinking that you're righteous. And you should still think that you're wicked. So, besides the fact that logic doesn't make sense, like why shouldn't you, if people tell you you're righteous, why should you still think that you're wicked? But besides that, we said, first of all, it seems that it's contradicting what it says in Pirkei Avot. It says over there that a person should not, don't think that you're righteous in your own eyes. But then we said also it's gonna be a contradiction to one of the 2 foundations of Judaism, which is simcha, joy, and responsibility. Okay? The first thing, the first thing that this may affect is your feeling of joy. If someone tells you that, we said that one of the most important things is to have good self-image. If you always think that if you think of yourself that you're wicked, and no matter what you're going to do, you're going to stay that way for the rest of your life, so it's a very bad self-image that will make you very depressed, very unhappy. And how could that fit with the importance of serving Hashem b'simcha, which is a very fundamental thing in Judaism, to be happy, to be happy with the service of God? How are you going to be happy? You're not going to be motivated at all because you think no matter what I'm going to stay wicked. So why are you going to be motivated to do anything? Because anyways, you're going to stay there. And even if you're going to end up doing something, you won't do it with any excitement. You just do it because, like they used to say, it's hard to be a Jew. I got to do it, So, and if you're going to make the impossible and say, I'll still be happy, I won't pay attention to the fact that I'm always wicked, that's also bad. Because if you don't care about being wicked, it becomes the point that you don't care about sinning. And then you won't be responsible, you won't take it seriously anymore. And that's also not good, because we know that in Judaism we have to realize that every action that we do makes a big difference, not only for ourselves, for the whole world. Like we spoke about the other time, like you mentioned about the scale. So it's very important to be very accountable for what we're doing. So it's not going to work. Okay, so this is how we started off, and then we started to introduce what it says in the Talmud about the 5 levels. 2 levels in a tzaddik, 2 levels in a rasha, and an intermediary. So, first of all, we want to understand what does it mean to be intermediary. We're going to try to figure that one out. And also, what does it mean to be righteous, to be wicked? Is it something internal, like what's going on within yourself, or is it something about your behavior, that about the way things are in your or is it about your behavior? And also another question, when it says tov lo ra lo, good to you and bad to you, is it talking about your inclination, or is it talking about your the way things are in your life, like the way life treats you? So at first we brought the pshat in the Gemara that it's talking about how life is treating you. So if life is good for you or not good for you, and that depends. We said for a righteous man, usually if life is good for him, it means he's perfect. If life is not good for him, it means that he has some kind of negative that he has to cleanse. And for a wicked, it's the opposite. Okay, that was the pshat. That was a simple understanding. And then we went deeper, and we said that we're really talking about something more internal. We're talking about whether you're, and we started to learn last week that when we say righteous, it's not just about your behavior that you're righteous. We're talking about, when we say, basically, this is what we're going to start off today with this understanding, that there is two areas that are important in one's life. One is the external, and one is the internal. One important thing. Hi. Welcome. And there is two important things to focus on in our lives as Jewish people. One is what's going on within ourselves, and one is about our behavior, right? So we already discussed that behavior means three parts, which is thought, speech, and action. That's where, when we learn Shulchan Aruch, we understand this is the most important thing as being a Jew, means that my actions have to fit with the Torah. Okay? Our speech, the way we talk, and of course it could mean not to speak Lashon Hara, it means to speak words of Torah, to speak positive, etc., etc., and thoughts. Even thoughts are important in Judaism. We're not allowed to think certain thoughts, and inappropriate thoughts or impure thoughts, and so on. And like Avodah Zarah is a thought that we cannot think, and etc. So also thought, speech, and action are important. So this is the way we understand Judaism. But then we know that there's another aspect in Judaism which is more internal, and this is actually a mitzvah that we say every day. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha. Love Hashem, your God, with your hearts. It's plural, levavcha, and not libcha. So the Gemara says in brachas, it means to love Hashem also with your Yetzer Hara, with your other inclination, your negative inclination. This is what we're going to discuss later. What does it mean negative? What does it mean positive? Etc. What's ra? What's tov? But we do understand that there's a mitzvah to love Hashem, and this is something more internal. It's not, and like the Rambam writes, we discussed 2 classes ago, that in order to get feelings in the heart, it starts with the brain. It starts with certain meditations. So this is already my inside. What I'm thinking, what I'm meditating on, and meditation, understanding means not just a thought. It means like a real connection with ideas, like really to think about it, and like we're going to learn later in Parag Gimel, that's the level of da'at, to really connect with logical, with ideas, like what we're trying to do every day when we're praying, when we do the davening. We're trying to think about the greatness of Hashem and connect with them, and to arouse emotions to desire to be close to Hashem. So this is already a whole different world than the world of action, of machshava, dibur, maaseh, thought, speech, and action. And they're both equally important. I shouldn't say that. The most important, obviously, our external behavior, because we are in olam ha'maaseh, a world of action. But at the same time, we have to realize that it's so important to have also internal connection to Hashem, to the extent when the Baal Shem Tov came, he said that if someone does a mitzvah without feelings, it's like a body without a soul. So this was one of the great big statements of Chassidut, to emphasize the importance of bringing life into the mitzvah, to have feelings in the mitzvah. It's like bringing a soul into a mitzvah. And this is also hinted in the word, in what we say in Pirkei Avot, and probably in many other areas in Talmud, ma'asim tovim. What does mean ma'asim tovim? We could just say Torah and ma'asim. Torah is learning, ma'asim is action. What's tovim? So I'm not sure if it's from the Baal Shem Tov, but it's written in Chassidut that tovim is like in the Hebrew, when we say precious stone, we call avanim tovot. There's avanim, there's just stones. There's avanim tovot, precious stones that are shiny stones. So the word tov, and actually that's actually interesting because it's connected to what we're going to learn in Chassidut, what tov means. we reading this parsha about Moshe Rabbeinu being born, and then it says Vateroto Kitovu, she saw that he was good, and the Chazal say, what do you mean that he was good? That the bait nitmaleh habayit kulo ora, that the house was filled with light. So also Vayar Hashem et haor, what's the word? Kitov. So we learn. That's how we learn. That's how the Gemara learns it out. But tov and or comes together. So in other words, we won't get there today, but probably next class. That in the eyes of Kabbalah, tov means a place where there is or, where there is a revelation of God, where God's presence is felt, and Ra means a place where God is hidden, and that's called already Klippa, a shell where God is hidden, and it's more your ego, and your ego is basically making yourself the center of everything and not God. So this is the idea of or, of Tov. This is the idea of Tov. I'm getting lost over here. What was I saying before? Anyone could remind me? So we were talking about the importance of our internal, right? That we should be connecting to Hashem not only in our external, not only in our thought, speech, and action, also in our inner self. So now this is what basically we define what a tzaddik is, what a Beinoni is, what a Rasha is. So what I'm telling you right now, really, if you learn Tanya, you only find this out much later. But I think for us, it's important to get the general idea where we're going, so then everything will fall into place. So the way the Alter Rebbe explains it, and he's going to prove everything, that a tzaddik is somebody, a righteous person, is only someone who is not only... A tzaddik is obviously somebody who is an external behavior is a tzaddik. That means his thought and action, thought, speech, and action are perfect. But a tzaddik is also someone who is internally perfect. That means that he only has Yetzer Tov. That means that he only has desire for Hashem, and he has absolutely no ego.
How are thoughts external?
Thoughts compared to your speech and action are external, but compared to your inner self are external. And the way we could judge if something is external or internal, generally in chapter 4, the Alter Rebbe defines external as garments. What is a garment? A garment is external. Except for that's why you could just change your garments all the time. The fact that you could change your thoughts and the thought is more internal, and the way to prove it is that speech and action you could stop them completely. You could stop talking, you could stop doing, but thought you can't stop. So that shows that thought is more internal, and that's why you can't stop. But what you could do is change your thoughts, and you have 100% control of changing your thoughts, which just shows that something external. But your inner self, you can't change as easily. Like if you desire something or love someone or something, you can't just change it overnight. You have to work hard to change it. Or your intellect emotion are more internal. It's more. It's something that is more of your inner self, of your character, and your thought, speech, and action. A garment is it's usually your natural way of talking and speaking and thinking is going to be expression of your inside, but you could change it, and this is the idea of a garment. Like you could have a poor man wearing garments of a wealthy man, and a wealthy man wearing garments. So you could be inside in a very like you could have very you could be very negative. You could have very bad and negative feelings inside, and yet to make yourself be involved in very positive mitzvah or learning Torah. So you're able to. Your garments could change, and that's what defines garments, what it defines external. But of course, thought compared to speech and action is more internal. So when we say internal, it's really more of your character, to really start loving Hashem. So a tzaddik is somebody who is good in both, in external and internal. Now, we do understand that tzaddik could have there's many levels of tzaddikim, and there's some tzaddikim who have a small Yetzer Hara, a little bigger, but they it's like, they have full control over it. It's nullified. Okay, that's what we call tzaddik v'ralo. That the negative side of them, they may have a small yitzhar, because to be 100% tzaddik, 100% yetzer tov, that's very few tzaddikim. We're going to get to it hopefully today. That very few tzaddikim reach that level that they have absolutely no yetzer hara. But there is many tzaddikim, which, I mean, even to be a tzaddik that has full control of his yetzer hara is also a very high level. But there is more of those. They still have a yetzer hara, but yetzer hara is like a sleep. It's not really activated, so they don't really feel the yetzer hara as much, even though he could wake up any day. So they have to be careful. Okay, so that's a tzaddik. A rasha is someone who is lacking in both. That means that he not only he has a yetzer hara, but also from time to time he may sin. And if we understand what a rasha is, we understand that unfortunately we own that category, because no one could say I'm perfect, I never do anything wrong. Okay, and we're going to see today, Mirza Hashem, that this is also according to halacha. Now, a Benoni, what's a Benoni? Intermediary, according to the Tanya. An intermediary according to Tanya means that he is halfway like a tzaddik, halfway like a rasha. In his external behavior, he's like a tzaddik. He never sins. That's why it's called. But he has a yetzer hara, he has an inclination like a rasha. So he's in the middle, because he's halfway like a tzaddik, like a righteous, halfway like a wicked. So, okay, so this is the way, basically, now we understand what's the oath. Hashem says, Te'i tzaddik, which means we have to strive to reach the level of a tzaddik, which means we have to, this is telling us that we should try. We shouldn't be satisfied just with following the Shulchan Aruch and making sure that externally we're not wicked, and we have the obligation. Before the Gemara Nida says, before a neshama comes to this world, there is 3 promises, and we learned last week that these promises basically means Hashem is giving the neshama strength. The word shvuah is from the word sova, satisfaction. That Hashem is giving us strength to be able to fulfill each of the 3 parts. And the first one is to strive to be a tzaddik, which means not to be satisfied just with following the Shulchan Aruch and being righteous in everyone's eyes, to also be righteous inside, which means to try to work on our feelings, on our heart, on our moach, avodat hamoach ve'alev, on our brain and our heart, to reach a level of love for Hashem, which is and we try to work on it. So we may not be able to reach the highest level, but try all your life. You have to strive to get there. Work on it all the time, and don't pay attention whether I got there or not. Always work on it, and that's what we do every day when we do during the tefillah. And this is the main reason why we daven, to working on our inner self. Then we have the second part of the oath: Al tehi rasha. Even if you don't reach to be a tzaddik, at least try not to be a rasha. At least be a benoni. At least, even if you don't get to transform yourself within, at least without, you should try not to be a rasha, which means to try to control every moment of your life to follow the Torah. So we understand why it's not really repetitive, because it's talking about 2 different things. And then it tells you that v'afilu kol am kula, the last part of the promise is very interesting, that even if everyone tells you you're a tzaddik, because they're judging you by your external look, they see that you're really, every moment of your life is very focused and very meaningful, and they assume you're a tzaddik, and they tell you you're a tzaddik. And you may think that they might be right. And he tells you no. You should still think that Ehyeh beinecha kerasha. What does it mean, Ehyeh beinecha kerasha? Doesn't say Ehyeh beinecha rasha. Doesn't say think that you are rasha. Think that you are like a rasha. Think that you are that comparison that the Benoni has to rasha. And that is the yetzer hara. It's very dangerous for someone who has a yetzer hara, who has an evil inclination or negative inclination, or has ego, to think that he doesn't have. Because we could assume, we could imagine what happens to somebody who thinks that everything they desire is holy, and they still have ego, and really it's not holy. So a righteous man, so a person always has to be careful, and I think we shared this story, maybe not. There's a story which is, I think, very connected to this. The story with Rabbi, I think Reb Nachum of Chernobyl. definitely happened with the Chernobyl Rebbe. I think it was Rabbi Nachman in Chernobyl. So one time, someone came to. He sees people every day for yechidut, for private audience, giving people advice and strengthening. And one person, after he saw the Rav, he had a little bit of money. He left 300 ruble for donation. So the people in the house were so excited because the rabbi was living in great poverty. They thought they're going to be able to start paying all the bills, but obviously the rabbi had different ideas in his head. But anyways, right after this man gave a donation, the next person who came to see the rabbi was very poor, and he had a daughter who needed to get married, and he needed money to marry her off. And he asked him, how much money do you need? He said, we need 300 ruble, and that's exactly the amount of money he just got. So he thought, great, it's from Hashem. Now I could help this man to marry off his daughter. What a mitzvah! And as he was about to give that money, he started thinking, one second, is it right? There is a big community here, and there's a lot of families who need money. Maybe I should divide it. I should give everybody. I should give him some, I give others some. It's not right to give everything to one person. And then he thought, he looked more into himself, and he thought to himself, one second, which thought came from the Yetzer Tov, which one came Yetzer Hara? And he realized that it seemed to him that he was about to do a great mitzvah. And then the Yetzer Hara comes in a tricky way and tries to convince you, well, it might be a better idea to help so many families. And he realized that he should give the money, and he gave the money. So this is an example of the importance of knowing yourself. Like if you think that I'm not saying if the return was righteous or not righteous. I'm just saying the idea that sometimes if a person thinks I'm perfect and everything I want is holy, and really it may be not. So it's important to know who you are, and that's the meaning of the last part of the oath. That even if everyone, based on your behavior, think you're righteous and you're perfect, you should always doubt it. You may not know yourself, like the story we mentioned last week of Rabbah, who said, I might be a Benoni, which means that's exactly what it said in the oath. He said, I might be like a Rasha, that I'm a Benoni that has a Yetzer Hara, and I need to know that. So if I wake up in the morning and I want something, I have to rethink if it's where it's coming from. But a tzaddik who really is is already on a different level. He doesn't have to worry that it may be a sin.
So we're saying that when the Mishnah says Raisa says Kirasha, that means if you're really a tzaddik, you think of yourself as a Benoni.
Yeah, unless you know. I don't know how.
What? You're a Rasha.
Unless you know you're a tzaddik. But we said that it's very tricky because even someone whenever someone is really involved in Torah and Tefillah all whole day, like Rabbah he was the Godel Ador, so he has no way to tell if he has Yetzer Hara or not, because when you're involved in holy things, you don't feel your Yetzer Hara. So that's why he wasn't sure.
But maybe isn't it just like a psychological play? Meaning, you're really a tzaddik. You know you're a tzaddik, but God tells you don't get too full of yourself because you can slip. So think of yourself as a Benoni.
Look. There's another point of what's in Pirkei Avos, that never trust yourself. So that's another point. But it's something else. Yeah, sorry.
Can a Benoni also be somebody with good thoughts and not good actions? You said the other way around, right? Somebody who has bad thoughts but does good things on the outside. But what if it's the opposite? Is that also considered?
We said that we learned last week that a Rasha. Okay. What in general we switch status all the time. Because basically, we're going to see in a moment that when we are involved in a sin, for that moment we're called Rasha. That's the halacha. But when we're involved in a mitzvah, we may be called a Benoni, maybe. but if we're really fully into it, like if we are holding, it's based on where we are holding. In other words, what we feel at the time. Like on Yom Kippur, we're standing, we say, there's no way we ever going to do anything wrong this year. A Benoni is not someone who is actively doing mitzvot, someone who is in his mind, there's no way I'm going to sin. Like the way he's standing now, he's not going to do anything wrong. So being a Rasha, if a person is sinning and inside he doesn't want to be there, he's still called a Rasha. It's called Rasha V'Tavlo. It's a good sign. It means that because unfortunately there's people who could sin and not even feel bad. But if you feel bad about it, that's a good sign. And that's what it says in the Gemara, we mentioned last week, Rashaim Elaim Charatot, that wicked people are full of regrets. And that's a good sign. It means that if you feel bad, it means that your Yetzer Tov, your Neshama, is still revealed, and you right away feel bad about it. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing we discuss now, the Alter Rebbe is gonna try to prove it from different sources. This idea. The first thing that we discussed yesterday, which we already mentioned, the story of Rabbah, and the second thing we mentioned yesterday was the story with Eov, where Eov turned to God and he said, "God, you have no excuse to punish the wicked people because you made them wicked." And we asked, what does that mean? And we said on the other hand, we know that we have free choice. Okay, so and the answer is to have a free choice is when it says in the Rambam that we could have free choice to be like Moshe Rabbeinu, not to be internally like Moshe Rabbeinu. We're talking about externally. So this is the way to understand a lot of pieces of Talmud, that you have to see what we're talking about, external or internal. We could all be like Moshe Rabbeinu externally in our thought, speech, and action, because we have free choice and we have full control. So we could be righteous in our actions, but not righteous inside. Righteous inside, that's not really in our hand. We may be lucky. If we work on it, we may get there. We're not for sure going to get there. And basically, according to Chassidus, this is what Korach was fighting about. Because in Korach's eyes, if the most important in Torah is your behavior, and if we're all Kulam Kedushim, everybody is holy, everybody is heard Hashem talking on Mount Sinai, and we all do the same mitzvot, what makes Moshe Rabbeinu or Aaron greater than the rest of us? But we understand that it's not so. Now, Eov, what was he saying? He knew that there is free choice. What does it mean when he says to God, "You created the wicked"? And God accepted his argument, and all God says was, "Well, I give them the Torah. With the Torah, they could have strength. They could have strength and fight their Yetzer Hara." So basically, if we understand what we just learned, it makes 100% sense. What he's complaining about is it's not fair that some people have the potential to become tzaddikim and to get rid of the Yetzer Hara. And some, no matter what they're going to do, their entire life they're going to stay with the Yetzer Hara. And we're going to learn later on that the more we mature, the more the Yetzer Hara is, like we just mentioned a moment ago, it's basically based on self-ego. And that ego only strengthens as we continue living our lives. Even a Benoni, somebody who is always perfect in his behavior, his inclination is growing because this is based on physicality. The physicality is associated with ego, and the more you live a physical life, every time you have another meal or you have another physical experience, it strengthens your physicality, which is your ego. So that's one of the things that the Alter Rebbe teaches us, because it's important for people not to get depressed. Because for so many years, I am learning, I'm doing mitzvot, and yet I have crazy inclinations. So the Alter Rebbe teaches us that's normal. We shouldn't be surprised. And this is one of the big things that the Alter Rebbe is going to talk about later, how to deal with this. But what was I saying? But Eov was trying to say that it's not fair that some people, no matter what they're going to do, they're always going to stay with those challenges. They're always going to have a Yetzer Hara. And that's what he said, Barat Reshaim, it's not right. How could you punish them? But Hashem says, you're right that it's very difficult for them, but I still I gave people the Torah with the study of Torah, like the Gemara says, if the Yetzer Hara attacks you, just pull him into the Bet Midrash, into the house of study. So you could deal with the Yetzer Hara. There is a certain truth to his claim that it's not fair, like there's chosen people who could become righteous, but this is the way it is. We don't understand God's ways. It's like a gift. What is the gift? What's the difference between a gift and or a sale, when you sell something? If you have a store or whatever and you're selling a certain product, so if a person comes to you, they say it costs $100, or 100 shekel, he gives you 100 shekel, you give it to him. So by a sale, you're basically getting what you're paying for. But with a gift, it doesn't work that. A gift, someone pleased you, and he may have pleased you in something small, and you're going to give them a much bigger gift that is worth a lot more. So it's not basically, you're not really paying for what you're getting by a gift. Also, a gift is not guaranteed. You're not for sure, you're not going to give a gift to anybody who pleased you. Okay? But if you decide to give him the gift, give him or her the gift, you're basically giving them a lot more. So it says that to be a tzaddik is like a gift. What does it mean as a gift? You're not going to give a gift to someone who didn't please you. So a tzaddik is somebody who really pleased God with his behavior, which means that he was working on his inner self could be a few years, many years, and eventually Hashem decides to give him that gift and take away his Yetzer Hara. And that's what happened with King David. Hopefully we're going to get there today. That he, after the sin with Bathsheba, he fasted and he worked hard, and he came to the point that he said, "V'libi chalal b'kiri" in Tehillim. He says, "My heart is hollow. I got rid of my Yetzer Hara," and he was able to reach there. Hashem, it was a gift, but it was through his effort. So
But Yaakov gave a gift to Esau.
well, it's true. So the point is that this is what what Eov complained about. He said it's not right. Why is it that some people Hashem gives them that gift and some people will not, and some people always have to struggle with the Yetzer Hara? Okay. Now let's continue. We're holding on page Daf Hey Ve'od. Very good.
What page?
Ve'od on the first page. It's on the small page. On the bottom pages, it's number 2.
7 lines from the bottom. Second word from the end.
We're continuing to prove what is a Benoni and what is a Tzaddik and what is a Rasha. Ve'od, and moreover, sheharei b'sha'ah she'oseh avanot nikar rasha gamur. When a person commits a sin, he's considered 100% Rasha, and such a person cannot be a witness. So it's talking about, unfortunately, in a way you could say nobody could be a witness. But the question is, how does a person sin? We're talking about someone who commits a sin, intentionally. So the way the Alter Rebbe writes it in Shulchan Aruch, he says, a sin that everybody knows is a sin. Like if someone breaks Shabbos, everybody knows breaking Shabbos is a sin. But sometimes when people speak Lashon Hara, they never even realize they're saying Lashon Hara. They think, I didn't do anything. So that's not necessarily going to make someone, even though it is a sin, certain things people do without realizing, but that would not make you invalid to be a witness. But things that everybody knows is a sin, if a person would do, it will make him a Rasha. So what we're trying to say is, we're trying to figure out what makes someone to be intermediary, a Benoni. Because the moment you're sin, you already called it a Rasha. And if a person already did Shuvah, and he did Nikrat Tzaddik Gamur, he becomes a complete Tzaddik. And that could take 1 second. There's a very powerful Gemara that the Rebbe used to speak about many times to prove how a person could do Shuvah in 1 second. It says, the Gemara talks about getting married or getting divorced and making a condition. And when someone makes a condition, so we know the way it works is a Tanai, right? So if the condition works, it's okay. Like for example, if someone gives a kiddushin, gives the ring to the woman, and it says, I'm marrying you on the condition that I have $1 million. And if he doesn't, then the halacha is that depending if he has the money or not, if she's married or not. So here's the question: what happens if someone marries a woman on the condition that I am a tzaddik gamur, complete tzaddik? So the halacha is that even if a moment ago he did the biggest avera, it's a questionable marriage. Safek mekudeshet. Why? Because maybe in that second that he married her, he had a thought of tshuva. He had a thought that he wants to change his life completely and he wants to be perfect. And then he turns to the status of tzaddik gamur, and then it could be she's married. We don't know, maybe not. So it's a doubtful kiddushin. She will need a get for that. So we see from that there is no benoni. If we're talking of either you complete tzaddik, if you do tshuva, and if you sin and before you do tshuva, you complete rasha. So where is a benoni coming into the picture? And you may think maybe to be a benoni is someone who did a small avera. So what is a small sin? What is a small sin? Maybe a small sin, maybe it means someone who just did a rabbinical prohibition, or maybe someone who didn't protest. Now really, to protest, limchot, is a mitzvah of the Torah that says, Ocheach tocheach et amitecha. But there is two types of Ocheach tocheach et amitecha. One which is biblical and one which is a mitzvah, one is not a mitzvah. If you see someone committing a sin intentionally, and you don't stop, you don't rebuke them for doing that, that's going against Ocheach tocheach et amitecha. It's a positive mitzvah in the Torah that if you see a fellow Jew committing a sin intentionally, you should tell them, to speak to them, try to influence them not to do it. But then what happens if you see someone committing a sin, doing something wrong unintentionally? So that's not included in Ocheach tocheach et amitecha. That's already a different category. That it says in the Gemara that because Israel arevim zel hazeh, we guarantors for each other, and we have the obligation to correct each other. So this is not part of this mitzvah. So maybe and that this is basically going back to the chet ha'egel, the sin of the golden calf. Not everybody was involved, and everybody was punished and those who were involved, they may have made a mistake. It wasn't a mezid, maybe it was shogeg by many of them, and everybody was involved, was responsible because they didn't protest. And also, when we had the first Beit HaMikdash, Hashem originally didn't only wanted to punish the Reshaim, and then the Gemara says that was the only time that a good prophecy was changed, and over there also, because those who were righteous did not protest or did not try to influence those who sinned. So maybe you would think to yourself that defines a benoni. I'm not a Rasha, I didn't do any avera. I'm not tzaddik because I saw somebody doing something wrong and I didn't stop them. Maybe that's what makes a benoni, an intermediary. And the last choice, so the Alter Rebbe says no, it's not like that. Because if we look in the halacha, it says va'afilu ha'over alisul kal shediver sofrim, even someone who goes against a light prohibition of the rabbis, mikar rasha, is considered a rasha. Kedete, as it says, beperek bet Yivamot, beperek kamat dinida, this second chapter of Yivamos, first chapter of Nida. Even if somebody has the ability to protest and he doesn't, mikar rasha. There's a story of it says that you're not supposed to protest if you know it's not going to make a difference. It says someone says it's better, just like it's a mitzvah to say words are going to be heard. It's a mitzvah not to say the words are not going to be heard. That's a halach in Shulchan Aruch. Sometimes we keep quiet. So there was once a widow who owed a lot of money to the bank back in the days, and the rabbi decided to go, and basically the rich man who was running this bank was very strict, and basically the rabbi decided to go to his house. Nobody understood why he's going to his house. There's no chance of getting anything from this guy. He knocked on the door, and this man was so excited. Wow, the rabbi came to visit me, and he comes in and he offers him a cup of tea, whatever it was, and then finally he says yes. So the rabbi keeps quiet. He doesn't say anything. He says, you came for something. He says, yeah, I came to do a mitzvah. He says, what kind of a mitzvah? It is a mitzvah that just like the mitzvah to say words that are going to make a difference, that are going to influence, the mitzvah not to say words that are not going to influence. So I came to the mitzvah to be quiet. So he says, what is it? How do you know it's not going to make a difference? Maybe it will make a difference. He says, no, I know it's not going to make a difference. He says, how do you know? Finally, he told them. He said, there's this widow who owes a lot of money to the bank, and her family, she has little children. It's a big problem. Like, she needs help. And they start saying, well, I can't do anything about it. I'm just the banker. It's not my money. I can't, And obviously I told you that it's not going to make a difference. So then he says, okay, you know what? I'll see what I could do. And he took care of it. So there is a mitzvah, limchot, mishish bi'adon limchot. If you have the ability, this is what it says over here, mishish bi'adon limchot. Somebody who can protest. In other words, sometimes it's not going to make a difference and it's better to be quiet. But if you know that you have the ability to influence, and you didn't, nikra rasha. Like it says, the previous Rebbe said that the mitzvah of protesting, so many people don't fulfill it right. Because people know, okay, the mitzvah to protest, to rebuke each other. Every time you see someone doing something wrong, you right away have to tell them off. But if in the same place where it talks about the mitzvah of rebuking, first of all it says, ochech tuchech et amitecha. And amitecha means someone who, amit in Hebrew means someone who is like on your level. If you telling off somebody else and you feel like, and you talk to them like they're below you, like you talking down at them, first, besides the fact that you're not going to influence them that way, but then you don't have the mitzvah. It's only if you're able to feel like you're talking to them with respect, like they're on your level. And at the same place, it talks about the mitzvah of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow Jew. So we learn that the only time that you have this mitzvah, it's coming out of love. Because it says in the same place, love your fellow Jew and don't hate your fellow Jew. If you feel anger towards the other or hatred because of what they did wrong, then first of all you have no mitzvah to rebuke them, and if you will rebuke them, it's not even going to help. So you're just going to, it says after lo tisal av chet, that if you're rebuking the wrong way, you're just embarrassing him and you're just doing the opposite. So it's a very sensitive mitzvah that the previous Rabbi said that many people use it in the wrong way, and unfortunately, and they damage more than it's more destructive than constructive. Okay, so it's actually emphasized over here because it says, in the case that you have the ability to rebuke, you have the ability to protest, like parents with their children, like we know, Shmuel Hanavi was Eli Cohen, and I think also Eli and Eli, they were told off that they weren't strict enough with their children. I don't know about the Shmuel, but Eli Cohen definitely, and I think also King David in a way, that all the mess that was with his children was because he wasn't strict enough with them. So obviously when you have children, you love them, and whatever you're going to tell them, I mean obviously if you're going to tell them in the right time, not right when you're angry, but you could definitely do it in the right way, and they know that you love them and you're able to do it right, and then you have the obligation to do it. So if a person has the ability to protest and he doesn't, so then he's called Rasha. So then there's no such thing as being a Benoni. Because you're going to Kavachomer, and how much more so, how much more so if someone has the ability to do a positive mitzvah and he doesn't. Come on, for example, if someone has the ability to study Torah, which is an ongoing mitzvah, and he doesn't, the Chazal say, there is a very strong words of Chazal in the Talmud that if someone could learn Torah and he wastes his time, it's like he's disrespecting the word of Hashem. Is like saying I have something better to do. And obviously someone who could do a positive, it's like studying Torah and he doesn't, it's even worse than rabbinical prohibition. So if going against a rabbinical prohibition makes a person a rasha, definitely someone who has the ability to study Torah and he doesn't, or any positive mitzvah he doesn't, also that would define a person as a rasha. So the bottom line is that we could conclude from all the above that someone is on the level of Benoni, and bo afilu avon bitul Torah. Even the sin of bitul Torah he doesn't have. What does it mean even? In a way, bitul Torah is something very severe. But there is a Gemara that says that there is 3 things that no one survives. 3 negative things, 3 averot that nobody survives. The Gemara in Baba says like this: iyun tefillah, to daven with great concentration. Unfortunately, we all fail sometimes on doing this. And the second thing is iru avera, to have thoughts that are inappropriate. That's also, nobody controls that. Nobody is able to be perfect on that. And the third thing is avak lashon hara. The Gemara says lashon hara. No, The Gemara says, no, not Lashon Hara, Avak Lashon Hara. Avak Lashon Hara is a dust of Lashon Hara. Dust of negative talk. Which dust means when you don't realize, like for example, anybody knows the example of Avak Lashon Hara?
You're speaking positively about someone.
Exactly, that's good.
Likewise,
Right.
someone else.
You speak to spies to somebody, next somebody who could be jealous of him, and you say, oh, what are you talking about? You start talking about the person's negative things. Or next to his enemy for sure. So that could be a dust Lashon Hara, because you didn't say anything bad, but you caused bad language to be spoken. So these are the three things that it says in the Gemara that everybody fails. Okay? Now, it's not talking about Bitul Torah, but we could derive from it, when you speak Lashon Hara, obviously you're not speaking words of Torah. And actually it's very interesting, what is Bitul Torah? Sometimes people think, well, if I say hi to my friend, it's Bitul Torah, so I shouldn't talk to anybody. So, Bitul Torah, we don't say Bitul Limud Torah. Bitul Torah means that you are wasting, that you are nullifying or the Torah, which means if you are doing a mitzvah, it's not Bitul Torah. Bitul Torah means that you are going. It basically means that you're not conducting your life according to Torah. Okay, if you are greeting somebody else, okay, for example, this is Kiyuma Torah. This is not Bitul Torah. Okay, so the Bitul Torah means when a person is able to learn and he doesn't learn, and instead of learning, he's doing something that is absolutely waste of time. So Bitul Torah is, in a way, we could do a lot of things that not going to be carried Bitul Torah, but we have to be very careful because we overdo it. Like even somebody, I don't want to exercise for sure not, but I'm saying even if someone does some kind of vacationing and things like that you think maybe it's Bitul Torah, if this is, like we're actually going to learn about it in chapter 7, where the Alter Rebbe brings stories from the Gemara, of great tzaddikim, like Rabbah, whenever he would say miltad b'dichuta, whenever he would start learning with his students, he would say a joke first. And you think, what's going on with this rabbi? This is the Gadol Hador, and it's Bitul Torah, he's saying a joke. So it's true, it says that but the great Torah scholars, even from their jokes, you could learn a lot of Torah. But and it's talking about drinking wine, that Rav Nachman, there's a story of Rav Nachman that he was struggling with a certain Gemara, a certain piece of learning, and then the next day he clarified it. And they said, what happened overnight? He said, I just had a great beef last night. So they said that the wine that I had and the chamra and the wine opened up my eyes, or the beef I had. So we understand that enjoying the physical world doesn't necessarily have to contradict with the Torah, and doesn't necessarily have to be Bitul Torah. But at the same time, we can't take advantage and say, like, it's something like we spoke about before, that we always have to think twice. Like we say that the kosher signs, there's 2 kosher signs, split hooves and chutz kad. And according to Kabbalah, what do these 2 kosher signs mean? It means that whenever we're about to eat an animal, we're got to get involved in the physical world, eating meat. So we have to have 2 signs that we're doing the right thing whenever we get involved in physicality. The first thing is chutz kad. Chutz kad means to redigest it. Even if at first glance we think we're doing the right thing, we have to be careful, because we're in a world of a helem v'hester, a world of concealment, and we could think that it's okay, and it may be not. We always have to chew it again, chew it over. And the second thing is split hooves. Split hooves means that the split hooves, one goes to the right, one goes to the left, and we know according to Kabbalah, the right is chesed, left is gevura. So we have to judge if we're doing it because this is our nature, or because this is the right thing. And we know the famous story with Avraham Avinu, with the 10th challenge of Akedat Yitzchak. So there's a question there, that was the 10th challenge. And we say that this challenge was the greatest one. Why was the 10th challenge the greatest challenge? And there's many, many answers, and in Chassidut as well. And one of the answers is that this was a test when he really went against his nature. Because Avraham had the nature of ahava, of chesed, of kindness, of being merciful. And here Hashem told him to slaughter the one that he loved so much, his only son that was born to him at his old age. That's really act of gvura, of cruelty, in a sense. and he was ready to do it. And that's why he said, "Atayadati." Now I know ki yireh Elokim ata, that you are yirah. Not only ahava, you also have yirah. That you're really serving God. You're really committed to God, and you need ahava, you have ahava. You need yira, you have yira. You need right wing, left wing. You have both, because it's not about your ego. And this is what we're going to study. Mitzvah Shem, we'll get there. That this is a way to judge if it's coming out of your ego or not. If you're only going in the path of your nature, then something is wrong. If there is some people who by nature are very caring and very loving and very merciful, and they could be giving a lot of tzedakah, and it's great. But to be a real Oved Hashem, servant of God, you have to see that you're able to go the other direction as well. You're able to be in that's because everybody has their challenge. Some people have a challenge to give. They like to be disciplined, and they love Shulchan Aruch, and it tells them exactly what to do, how much and how when and what time to wake up, when to go to sleep, and what is it. They love it. And there's some people who are more, I don't know what's the word for it, more open and more easygoing, and they love more. And for them, that's a struggle to have all these instructions and halacha and all these details. And they want to be able to talk anytime in davening, and like things like that. It's like to be easygoing. But then when it comes to tzedakah, they have no problem to give and to be nice. So everybody has this struggle, and we have to split hooves. Means that in order to know that we're doing something kosher, that we are in a kosher direction, is to be able to go wherever it's necessary, chesed or gevura, and like the Ramban writes that it's impossible to have that only in Avodat Hashem. In the world, a person who has chesed was in the mode of chesed. It's hard for him to change the gevura. It's not possible to either a person is on the line of chesed, is like open and outgoing, or gevura, or is like strict and whatever, like in the lane in the left or right. But only in Avodat Hashem we have the ability, because we're talking with a godly soul that is infinite, and here we could have the both, like Avram did. Like we could have both Avat Hashem and Yirat Hashem. Which what are we doing with time?
It's 5 to 9.
5 to 9. Okay. Do you have any questions or?
Could you, when you said Chesed, the Gemara and the Split, which was left and which was right?
Chesed is right,
okay,
and Gemara is left. Yeah. Just to conclude, I'm sorry, you say.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, just to conclude. So what we're saying right now is that in the Gemara, when we say tzaddik or rasha, it's different than in the medrash or agada of the Gemara. Halachically speaking, someone who is to be called a tzaddik, the halacha is like it says. There's a Gemara saying, "En la dayan ma she'ein avrot," that a judge could just based on what his eyes see. Halacha is about external. When in halacha, we call someone a tzaddik, it means in his behavior is a tzaddik. Like for example, we said someone who did tshuva is already called a tzaddik. Why is he called a tzaddik? He still has a yetzer hara. Because we're not talking about what's going on inside. We're talking about in your behavior. The moment you did tshuva in your mind, you're going to control all of your desires, inclinations, and temptations. You're already called a tzaddik. Okay, that's in halacha. Also, we're going to learn next week, hopefully, that also on Rosh Hashanah, when we say a tzaddik, it's like when you have a court case, and you're judging about a certain case, and you're saying this guy in I don't know if you said in English, but in Hebrew, when someone is comes out to be zakai, you could say zakai or tzaddik, righteous. Tzaddik bedino. So when we say he's righteous in the judgment, doesn't mean that he's righteous in everything he did in his life. In this case, he came out the righteous one, and the other guy became the wicked one. So this is another way to say a tzaddik. A tzaddik means on Rosh Hashanah, when Hashem judges us on the scale, and if we have majority merits, and we discussed the other day that merits doesn't mean quantity, it means quality. Sometimes you could do one mitzvah and put so much effort, it could be weighing a lot. And sometimes sins that we do, like Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev said, that it says that every time you do a mitzvah, you're creating a good angel. You create avera, you create a bad angel. And these guys go on the scale on Rosh Hashanah. So Rabbi Levi said that he never saw an angel that was created from a sin of a Jew that was 100%. That was 100%. That didn't have any blemishes. He says one angel is missing a heart, one is missing a head, because even when a Jew sins, he doesn't feel so good about it, and it's missing something. It's not a healthy angel. The bad angels are not 100% healthy. They don't have all their organs. Something is it's not perfect. So anyway, so even Chas v'Shalom, when a person sins, a lot of times there's a lot of pressures and and it's not just like leteavon, like the famous story of this rabbi who came on Tisha B'Av, no, Yom Kippur. Oh, it was Tisha B'Av. They saw the guy eating davar acher. Yeah, he said nice word. What?
White meat.
Anyways, it was, and he said leteavon. You should, what is it? Good appetite, or whatever. So he didn't understand. He says because there's two levels of a sin. One is called chet, one is called pesha. One is called avon, one is called pesha. Avon is mezid when you do it intentionally, but you do it because you have a big temptation and you can't control yourself. And pesha means to rebel, the achis, like you want to get God angry. So of course we know the pshaim is the meradim, is rebellious. That's the worst. Because when a person has a yetzer hara, has temptations, it's hard always to control, and Hashem is considering it. But when a person is just doing it to get God angry, that's really, there's no excuse for it. So he gave him a wish that he said it should be for good appetite. You should let it have on. It should be because you're desiring it, and that's why you're eating it. You're not just trying to do the wrong thing. So that's what I'm saying. That sometimes we do avera, and because we had a big challenge, it's not like it's weighs so much. And our mitzvot could weigh a lot. So the way we're judged on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur it's not necessarily the way we see it. Like we could see someone who is very not religious, think, how could he pass the judgment? But someone who's not, it says in the Gemara that it's something called Tinokot Shenishbu, children who were raised in captivity, which means they didn't know they're Jewish. It says that they're called anusim. It's unavoidable. Their sins are unavoidable because they never learned about it. And it could be someone who's not brought up religious. He doesn't really understand the meaning and the importance of Torah mitzvot. So it's called honest. So one person like that, whatever he does wrong in his life, right? From the perspective of Torah mitzvot, is not really so severe because he was never raised that way. And however, when he does one mitzvah, that mitzvah could be weighing so much because it's unbelievable that a person like that comes to Shul Yom Kippur. So we don't understand. And we have to be melamed zchut, but we don't understand how Hashem is weighing the mitzvot and avirot. And like the Gemara says that for ignorant Jews, their sins are of mezid, intentional, considered unintentional, and for the Talmidei Chachamim, their shogeg, their unintentional is like intentional. So we don't understand. So when we say in Rosh Hashanah tzaddik, it means that he by him he tipped the scale. So it's not means that he's a tzaddik within. It means either with regards to the judgment of Rosh Hashanah, or what we say about Tzaddik Amor, that with regards to his mindset right now, is a Tzaddik, he did Shuvah, he's not going to sin. But when we're talking the Medrash of the Gemara is already Kabbalah. It's already the Pnimiut Torah. It's already the deeper way of looking at a Jew. That's the Medrash and the Zohar. And when you look at the Medrash and the Zohar, we understand that a Tzaddik, when we say a Tzaddik, it's already not just external, it's already something deeper. It means that you already reach a level of transforming Yetzer Hara like David HaMelech.